Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's IBSI Forum, IBSI Forum on Israel, Africa, and Black America. This is me, it's Joshua Washington, Executive Director of the Institute for Black Solidarity with Israel. I was going to be co-hosted today by our board member and head of our Speakers Bureau, also my lovely wife, Olga Washington. Today, that's not happening. As we're actually getting ready to receive some family members from South Africa whose flights have been delayed several times, and they were supposed to be here about 8.5 hours ago, and now they're almost here now finally. So she is getting them, and so you are with me here today. We have a few things that I want to discuss, and as people are coming in both on Clubhouse and here on this app, if you're on Facebook or Twitter, welcome. Feel free to ask questions, to throw stuff in the chat. I want to have this discussion here briefly, or for the next hour or so, it seems here. The first thing I want to address, I want to do a little bit of a recap. Last week we talked about a few things. Our CEO, who is in Jerusalem at the moment, he's right now in Israel with Pastor Shagan, and a group of African businessmen and women and ministers for the African Leadership Summit. It is an amazing conference that happens every year. I sadly was not able to go this year. We were trying to work it out. I was going to go and help with some of the music, but I wasn't able to. My father, though, is still going. He's there now, and he's helping with some of the music, but he's also doing some other work there as well. So he's not here today to be with us, but he does send his regards, and he even sent some stuff that he would like for me to mention while I'm here. So a little bit of a recap from last week. One of the things that our CEO addressed was that video from H. Pearl. I think she goes by Pearly Things on social media. She removed the video. As you see, the title says, not because she regrets espousing those views. Definitely not. We've just seen from some of the other things that she has said. Also, again, she's a proud follower of Nick Fuentes, who, if you guys don't know who he is a very far right, very, very not Nazi in the sense of just throwing that term around like it sometimes it gets overused. Literally a neo-Nazi, literally a Holocaust denier, questioning if Jews were really killed, questioning if that many Jews were actually killed, if 6 million Jews were actually did perish in the Holocaust, and also questioning if it was that many Jews that were killed in the Holocaust, if it was for no reason, basically questioning if Hitler was actually evil, or if we had a good reason to. Then literally this is what he talked about on a podcast that he was on with a bunch of Black American young people who unfortunately didn't really know very much. And I say that because that's evidenced by a couple of them. It was like a panel of them. It was like maybe 5 or 6, and then he was talking. One of them made the comment that, wow, you know so much about these things. You're very knowledgeable. And he got so comfortable that he used the N-word multiple times on the podcast. To which you could see if you watch the video, some of them actually got uncomfortable with him saying that, and others just kind of laughed and let him say it. So this is kind of where we are. We talked about that last week. I made a I tweeted a couple times about that, and one of the things that I so what you're seeing on screen here, I tweeted, it says there's a rising tide of young people on both the far left and the far right side of the political spectrum who are attempting to repaint Adolf Hitler as some sort of hero in World War II and the Jews as some sort of villains who need to be dealt with. This is where we are. And I tweeted that because when I first made the tweet about her, what I noticed, especially as a musician, as a professional musician, as someone who does this, who travels the world and does this, I'm very much in the music space, and whenever sometimes I overlap and I'll post something from IBSI and I'll post it onto my music page. I noticed that the level of engagement with some of the things that I post. So I'll give you an example. When I posted up, it was a couple of years ago. I posted about no, not a doctor, a professor. I posted about a professor who was, um, it was a professor who was teaching kind of similar things about, questioning the numbers and the Holocaust and all those different things. A professor out of college. This professor was not a far right professor. Um, and it was a professor that also espoused views that would line up more with the political left in terms of, diversity, equity, inclusion, and things like that. So I posted about this and didn't really get a lot of, response or anything like that, except for by a few people who really don't care what people think about them. And I noticed that whenever I do post something like that, I posted last year about an anti-Israel event, an anti-Israel riot rally that we counter protested. I posted about there being an Arab man on the other side who was waving the Turkish flag, which was kind of odd because I guess he was advocating for the return of the Ottoman Empire while everyone else was waving Palestinian flags, but whatever. So he was there. There's a few other Arabs there and a few Jews on that side as well, and then me and my wife and there were a lot of people from the Christian community and the Jewish community there. One of the things that was said by the Arab guy on that side to an elderly Jewish man on my side who was standing right next to me was, Hitler should have finished the job on you. Hitler should have finished the job on you Jews. And the other man said, what did you say to me? He said, you heard me. I said, Hitler should have finished the job on you guys. Now, this is not a neo-Nazi protest. These are social justice warriors. These are young people. And that was the sentiment on their side as well. So when I made that tweet, um, I honestly I made the tweet and then and the weekend started, and I try to stay off social media through the weekend, especially from Friday night to Saturday night during Shabbat. So I wasn't really thinking about it. I went, I think went to my parents' house and had dinner, and then the next morning we had breakfast and all that stuff. Saturday night rolls around. I open up Twitter and I see like dozens and maybe like over 100 notifications. I look and I see, you have your anti-Israel people who react to that and all that stuff. But I also saw reactions from people who are, I don't think they're necessarily anti-Israel, but they were just offended at the fact that I would say that there are people on the left side who also deny the Holocaust and who also try to soften up Hitler's ideology. And so I saw that, and I saw the level of pushback, like I had trampled over a sacred cow. So then that's what I made. Um, I doubled down because it's absolutely true. So I shared some other things, articles I've written over the past few years that no one has paid attention to, but it very much is. It has nothing to do with political ideology as much as it has to do with your mindset. Really, if that's why we saw, for those who are in this fight, when Kanye went crazy and started saying all this stuff about the Jews, we saw conservatives. I don't know about you. I saw conservatives like the rapper Topher, I think it's Topher Williams. Other conservatives, they would share resources from far left anti-Israel um, organizations and publications to bolster their anti-Israel claims. And I went, these are the same organizations. This is the same resource that tomorrow you'll probably denounce because they'd said something about black people not being, good enough to do XYZ or institutional racism. This is the same. These are the same people that you're railing against all the time. Now you're using them and their backwards thinking to support your racist and anti-Israel claims because you need someone to back you up. It was just interesting that all of a sudden everyone just became almost like the same. They're being possessed by the same spirit. And so it's very much on both sides of the aisle. It's very much all over the place. So we talked about that for a little bit. Today, I'm shifting gears just a little bit. I want to address a couple of things here today. And I'm going to start with this, and then I'm going to end on a more of a high note. So a few days ago, I thought it was cringy, and we joked about it, but it was also very disappointing to see. But there was something went viral on Twitter. It was during Senator Tim Scott's prayer breakfast. The lady named Nancy Mace, who was supposed to, I think, give an address or something at the beginning. Maybe she was opening up. I don't know exactly what it was. It was just a clip, her starting her speech. And when she started her speech, she decides to, at this prayer breakfast. Now let's set up the scene here, okay? At this prayer breakfast, Nancy Mace gets up, and now you're at a prayer breakfast. That means there's Christians there. That means, and at these things, you have very traditional Christians there. It's not like it's not just prayer breakfast by name. It's not just Republicans there, but you have very traditional, biblically based Christians who are in the room, hundreds of them there, maybe more, right? And Nancy is there. And the way that she opens up her, I don't know if we have the video. Maria, if we have the video, if you can go ahead and press play. If not, that's okay. I can always recap it. But if you can cast that now, go ahead. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead and show it.
This together, another year, another standing room only event. And when I woke up this morning at 7, I was getting picked up at 7:45. Patrick, my fiance, tried to pull me by my waist over this morning in bed, and I was like, no, baby, we don't got time for that this morning. I got to get to the prayer breakfast, and I got to be on time, and a little TMI, but he can wait. I'll see him later tonight. But I was here early.
Oh, I can't even watch that without shrinking into myself. So there's two things that was interesting to me when I watched it. One was that when she made the comment, she said, "Little TMI." I wanted, if I was a friend of hers, I could text her. I could no, sweetheart, it wasn't TMI. That wasn't the main thing. Yes, it was TMI, but the main thing that caused the room to not even react at all, or not make a single sound, like it was crickets, was the fact that you were announcing to everyone, again, at this prayer breakfast, that you and your fiance are living together and you're not married. Now, this is not, the point of this is not, I'm not here to talk about sex before marriage. Okay? I need you to stay with me here. Okay, because for those who, well, it's not a big deal. There are even conservatives who are like, oh, it's not a big deal. People need to get over themselves. That's not the point. The point is you need to know your audience. That's the point. You need to know who it is that you're speaking to. That's 101. When my wife Olga trains young people on public speaking, that's like the first thing that she talks about is the first question you have to ask whenever someone is asking you to speak somewhere. The first thing you have to ask is, who is my audience? Who am I speaking to? Who are the people that I'm speaking to? What do they care about? Is it just one demographic? Is it like a certain ethnic group? Is it a diverse crowd? Is it young people? Is it old people? Who am I speaking to, so that I don't just start rambling about something that they don't care about, or worse, start speaking passionately about something that they are completely and totally 100% against, and then to take away from the actual point of why you hired me. Who's my audience? Who is my audience? And so it was clear that Nancy either didn't really know who her audience was, maybe didn't care. For me, from the look on her face, she thought that joke would kill. she thought that, the crowd would erupt in laughter, and it seemed like she kind of fell apart internally as she went on, because she realized, well, why aren't they laughing? They're not laughing because it's not really a joke for a group of Christians at a prayer breakfast. It's just not. You can surmise, you can disagree with them, you can talk about how Christians are so backwards, but it doesn't. It is not the point. The point is that was her audience. That was her audience, and she made a joke as if she was, I don't know, in front of a different group. And when I saw that, and I cringed, but the one thing I thought about was, you know what? This is how this is how allyship can potentially be destroyed if you don't know who your allies are. So it's not just knowing your audience, but it's knowing your allies, knowing who your friends are. And one thing that I as a Zionist, as a non-Jew here at IBSI, we're largely run by we're Gentiles. We some of our IBSI ambassadors, which I'll talk about later on, um, we have a group of IBSI ambassadors. It's a mixture of Christians and Jews, but our staff, we're non-Jewish. We have a stake in this fight as Black Americans, as members of the African diaspora. In my wife's case, as an African, right there, we talk about that at length. Tons of articles. If you go to ibsi.substack.com, you can read about why we do what we do and the things that we highlight and the people that we connect with, and talk to and build with. There's a reason for this, right? And we proudly and strongly stand with Israel, and advocate for a strong Africa-Israel alliance. All that stuff, right? But one of the things I have to say, as a non-Jewish ally, is that you have to know your allies. And what I mean by that is Africa. I don't think you will never find a group of people, non-Jewish, non-Jews, non-Jewish people. Okay, you will never find a group of non-Jewish people who are more passionate about Israel than Africans. You won't find it. I urge you to search. You won't find another group of people more passionate about Israel than Africans, for a number of different reasons. For a number of different reasons. One of, in my opinion, one of the strongest allies in this fight are Africans. They stand with Israel not just because they stand with Israel because of their basic, as the majority of the continent of Africa is Christian. They know their Bible, they know their word, and they know that Israel belongs to the Jews. They know that the land was given to them by God. That is at the heart of their faith. Okay, like along with Jesus being the Messiah, right? Is that Israel, like the Jews returning to Israel, was a miraculous thing, and God's hand was on it, and God's hand is still on the state of Israel. You won't find people more passionate than Africans. I promise you that. So that's amazing, right? Now, in that, and also I'll say this: there's been no stronger and no better friend of Africa than Israel. You won't find another country that does more with, not just for. There are Israeli NGOs that do things for African countries and for the continent, but there are so many Israeli NGOs that do things with Africa, and that's so important. They don't just give things to Africa. They don't just, oh, we have this NGO, we have this organization that feeds Africans. We just give them food every month. Okay, that's great. But are you going to do that forever? I mean, how does that work exactly? What if you decide that you don't want your organization to exist anymore? You're going to stop feeding Africans? Like, how does that? No, what Israel does, there are a lot of Israeli nonprofit workers and entrepreneurs and scientists and engineers that think about, how do we actually eliminate this problem? And I'll give you an example. I talked about this before. Innovation Africa brings Israeli innovation to African villages. But they don't just, so they come to these African villages that don't have clean water, and they build wells, they build sustainable, clean ways for them to get water, solar panels so that they have electricity. One of the problems with young kids going to school is that there's no light. How can I read if I can't see? So they have light in their schools. They set up health clinics, particularly for, like, for instance, young girls who are just starting their periods and they don't have the resources. Now they don't go to school because they have blood on their uniform. I'm not trying to be graphic, but those are real issues. And so what Innovation Africa does is they move those barriers out of the way so that these young kids who are hungry for knowledge can continue to learn and to learn and grow. One of the other things it does, it doesn't just build these plants, these water plants and these uh, solar plants and everything, but they train locals on how everything works so that when things start malfunctioning or it's time for something to be changed or something in the machine is not working, there are locals there on the ground who know how to fix it. There are locals there on the ground who know how to install new ones. And one of the other amazing things that they do as Innovation Africa and our friend Sivan, who founded and runs the organization, one thing they do is most of the Africans who are trained, and I'm talking about villages in Uganda, villages in Kenya, they not like most of them don't even they'll take their skills and they'll bring it to the marketplace and they'll better their country, which is the goal, which is what Innovation Africa wants. They want these African countries to be able to sustain themselves. A tiny percentage of those workers come back and want to work for Innovation Africa, but she says that's not even our goal. We want to see them stand on their own 2 feet, and we just want to remove some barriers. There's some challenges that Israel has overcome. There are challenges that Israel's had and have had to overcome because they had to, that they want to give to the world. Okay, so that's what I mean by doing things with Africa, right? No other country has done as much with Africa as Israel has, and I hard press you to find me a country that has done more than Africa. But first, you're gonna have to find all the things that Africa has done for Israel, and I'm still doing that. I haven't found everything. So, all those things being said, when searching for allies in this cause, it's very important to know who your allies are. Okay, I just talked about the prayer breakfast, right? As cringy as that was, and I know some of you who aren't even Christian are like, "Wow, why would she say something like that? I would never say something." I have non-Christian friends who would never even utter those words or put those words together if they knew they were speaking at a prayer breakfast. That's just 101. Know who you're speaking to and know what know what they like and what they don't like. Same thing with allies. Um, when it comes to this, it would be wise not to, for instance, try and of all the things to highlight when you're advocating for Israel, right? Or you're talking about Israel to Africans, or you're advocating you're advocating your Israeli organization, right? You're trying to sell something to or partner with people in Africa. It would be wise, generally, to try not to push things like, for instance, uh, Israel's LGBTQ um, doings, like agenda, rights. Okay. Why? Well, again, you have to know your allies. You can disagree with them on it. You can disagree. You can not like what I'm saying right now, but all I'm saying is it's not really wise to highlight something so much and push something so much that your audience is not only do they not really care about, but the vast majority of the audience is like, that's not really what we don't do that here. Right? That's not wise. That's not a wise policy to take. No more than it would be wise for me to let's say I wanted to speak to a crowd about Christian persecution around the world, which is a very important issue, and it's something again that the only place in the Middle East where Christians are safe are fully safe right now is Israel. And that's why a lot of them are fleeing to there. But I came and I spoke to a vast majority of Jewish people, a crowd of Jewish people about Christian persecution around the world. But then one of the points that I keep highlighting over and over and over again is how many people came to faith in Jesus because of these underground churches. And I started highlighting, for instance, maybe I started telling, I don't know any stories like this, but I started telling stories about, how many Jewish people came to faith in Jesus because of these underground churches. It would make the room really uncomfortable. And these are people now, like this prayer breakfast. This is an audience of people who are there because they care about this issue and they want to help. And I found that to be true. Our Jewish brothers and sisters, they speak up and say more about Christians persecuted around the world than many churches and church leaders do. I found that to be the case all the time. So I'm speaking to a crowd that already wants to hear what I have to say. And because I don't know my audience or I don't care, I'm just going on and on and on and on about, oh, and Jesus this, and people are coming to faith in Jesus, and Jesus, and oh man, and them Jews need Jesus. See how cringy that you might be getting now while listening? That's how cringy that video was of Nancy Mace, and that is how it's the same kind of cringiness that happens when trying to forge allyship, but not really knowing who you're allied with, or, and I'm going to keep going with this, or trying to forge an allyship as long as your ally also lines up with you on other issues that you care about. That's not allyship. That's not friendship. Really, allyship is friendship, really. True allyship is friendship. When you have friends, allyship grows out of that naturally. If you have allyship without friendship, it's just transactional. And you have to be real about the fact that it's transactional. I saw the last episode. I don't want to spoil it, but of Secret Invasion. Secret Invasion, the Marvel show on Disney Plus. Nick Fury and Maria Hill, who was killed in the first episode or second. And the last episode of it last night, if you haven't seen it, I'm about to spoil it for you. But the agent, I can't remember her name, but she was a high government official, a British lady, was approaching one of the main characters because she wants to partner with her. And the lady said, the young girl was, kind of being standoffish toward her. And she said, look, let's not do this dance. She's like, you're going to use me, I'm going to use you, and we're both going to do what's best for our sides of this thing. And the girl accepts it and walks off with her. That's actually pure allyship. Is like, I really don't have anything to do with you, but you have some things that I want, and I have some things that you want, and she was upfront about it. If you're really truly seeking a friendship, a real partnership, it can't be at the expense of their convictions. If an African who stands against all the LGBTQ stuff is someone who is very pro-Israel, you need to decide whether or not you want to work with them and then make that decision. Right? It actually does more harm than good to tout them and parade them around as the African Zionists, and then kick them to the curb when they start saying other stuff that you don't agree with. A lot of Christians are pro-life. I'm pro-life. I post a lot about it, wrote articles about it and everything. A lot of our families and everything. If that disturbs you to the point where you want to disassociate yourself, that's fine. Do what you want to do. Okay? But just know that when you do that, but then at the same time, use IBSI's platform whenever you want to, we won't stop you. And it's not even about IBSI. I'm just talking about allyship, right? We won't stop you, but just know that you are perpetuating a very, very bad relationship. That's not a friendship at all. Integrity would say, okay, well, we have to part ways. Or, you know what? Those are your deeply held convictions. I don't agree, but we agree on Israel, and that's what we're going to do. That's a real friendship. If you're able to accept that your allies are coming from a different background than you, and so though you might overlap on one issue, you might disagree on everything else. If you can accept that, then cool. But if you can't, then you need to move on. That's what a mature response would be. So know your allies. Know who your allies are. It's a very important thing to do. And that's not it. And it's not just something that I'm not just preaching that to Jews, Christians too. I mean, I especially early on in this whole thing, but still today. I've had very rocky relationships with Christian peers who they were doing the whole pro-Israel thing, but they thought, and this is what the accusation we always get, they thought that we were on the same page. They thought that we were doing it because we wanted to have an inroad, and then we were going to just take the gospel and slap our Jewish brothers and sisters in the face with it. And once they found out that's not what we were trying to do, then they, distance themselves from us and also cut relationships off with their Jewish friends because they wouldn't accept Jesus. It's okay, guys. That's also not friendship. That's not allyship. They know we're Christian. They know what we believe. And that just is what it is, right? They don't accept it. If you're going to step into this fight, which is about their indigenous homeland, then you have to respect that, right? You can't force that onto them stepping into their space. I've been in situations where I've been asked questions, about my faith and about my beliefs, and I answer truthfully and honestly, and we have great conversations. But that's not like, if I were to step into the space of our Jewish brothers and sisters to fight on their behalf and to help fight with them and speak up for Israel and all those different things, only to turn around and try and like inject my faith into their veins secretly or quickly or whatever, then I'm not an ally either. I mean, that's how the way this works is you and I have a common goal, and that's pure allyship. We have a common goal, let's work toward it. A friendship is, hey, I love you. I want what's best for you. I'll defend you tooth and nail. We have differences, but hey, those are differences. We can work it out, or maybe we don't work it out. But on this, I'm willing to fight with you and stand with you. That's friendship, and from that, it's actually, in my opinion, the truest, purest form of allyship, because it says we're friends. So me coming to your aid has nothing to do with what's strategic for me. It's you're my friend. You're close to me, and so before I even think about what's politically expedient, I'm going to come to your defense. Period. Even if it means that I, get my hands chopped off. Even if meaning like metaphor, meaning even if it means I get ostracized from my own community, even, right? No, I'm standing with you. That's a true friendship. That's true allyship. So know your allies, people. Know your allies. Know your friends. Let's see here. I'm not actually on the platforms, but I know there are people on Facebook and Twitter. If you're watching, hello. This is the Institute for Black Solidarity with Israel's forum on Israel, Africa, and Black America. If you're here, say hey. Where are you listening from? Where in the world are you? If it's late, thank you for tuning in so late. It's 8:30 over here on the East Coast, and we're just talking. So feel free to drop something in the comments, drop a question or whatever. I'd love to answer it. Love to chat with you. And that goes for those who are on Clubhouse as well. Feel free to hop in here. Yes, hope everyone's doing well. So we just talked about knowing your allies, knowing your audience, and knowing your allies. It's a very important thing to do. Once again, my name is Joshua Washington. I am the executive director of the Institute for Black Solidarity with Israel. Our CEO, Dumisani Washington, is in Israel right now, which is why he's not here today. We also trade off sometimes, so I decided to take on this one. Our Speakers Bureau leader and board member Olga Mishway Washington is not able to be here today as well. She is receiving family members from South Africa. Like I said, they should have been here hours ago. Their planes got delayed a few times, and so she's now getting them. And I am here now with you. I want to now pivot here and shift gears. I want to talk about this really cool, again, another example of Israel doing things with Africa, not just for Africa. We like to say these like timeless proverbs, not literal proverbs in the book of Proverbs, but like stuff like you lead a man to fish, or you give a man a fish, you feed him for a day, teach a man to fish, you feed him for a lifetime. But Israel really does live that out with these organizations, whether it's business to business, people to people, even government to government. It's not just giving fishes. Israel says, here is how we were able to find fish. Here are the things that we did to catch fish effectively, and now we want to teach that to you. So one of those ways is their Developers Institute. And Maria, if you have that, go ahead and put that up there on the screen. Israel's Developers Institute. Uh-oh. Hope you guys can still see me. Oh, here we go. Their Developers Institute teaches It has students all over the world. It teaches them how to code, and not only does it teach you how to code, but it teaches you how to. It's a lot of it is virtual, so you can learn from all over the world. They have teams from everywhere. If you go on the website, you might go back on the website, and if you click on About Us, scroll down, scroll down, scroll down, and you'll see some of the team list. So, Maria, if you can put the website back up, please. Um, oh, okay, okay. I'm sorry, I didn't realize. So, the scrolling is not an option here on Restream. So that's Developers Institute. If you guys are on there, if you check it out, it's developers.institute /en, so you can see it in English. Go to the About page. You'll see their teams, right? They have their different team leaders, the co-founders, the campus team, Tel Aviv, Azerbaijan, Morocco, Mauritius, Nigeria. So they have a Nigerian team. So not just people that they're training, but they actually have a team in Nigeria that's fairly large. I'm looking at just the numbers here on the website, right? I see 4 people on the Tel Aviv campus. I see 3 people on the Azerbaijan campus, 2 people on the Morocco campus, 4 people on the Mauritius, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 people on the Nigeria team. Cameroon, Senegal, and Burkina Faso, Mali, Togo. This is worldwide. I think it said over 25 countries. But I'm highlighting the Africa part of it because Israel freely gives their knowledge and their expertise to everyone who's willing to learn from them, and that's not something that you see as often, not in this kind of world, right? It's literally teaching people how to fish. We learned about this when we were in Israel, when we went to Kibbutz Malkiah up in northern Israel, and right on the border of Lebanon, and you saw these African farmers that were there. And one of the things that we learned from we had a tour guide, but we had another tour guide specifically for Kibbutz Malkiah who lives there, and he has young troops patrolling the border, and he runs the whole place. And he said that, yeah, we have a program where African workers, they come here for like an internship. They learn how to do all this agricultural stuff. They get paid to do it. And then when they're done, we send them back to their countries to teach others how to do the same thing so they can better till their own land and all those things. That is unheard of. I mean, what? Like, that's so no cost. So you mean that Israel doesn't do that and then take over pieces of their land? No, actually, China does that. China actually does that. Like, there's nothing really in it for Israel except maybe possibly the chance of friendship in the UN, right? Maybe over time, more African countries will vote for Israel in the United Nations. But that's even then, it's like there's no ways there is no way to force any of this to be. And these aren't even government leaders; these are just people. They're just farmers. These are people who want to farm, who want to make a living, who want to feed their country. And they teach them and send them back. I mean, what other country does that? So that's what this Developers Institute is. This organization that teaches different types of coding to people, to students all over the world. They teach about, let's see here. I was looking at some of this earlier today. I didn't even know that. Like, I'm not a coder by any stretch. My experience in coding, the extent of that is MySpace when I was younger, which I heard is not even. It's actually, MySpace was cool because it did kind of get you prepared for coding if that's what you wanted to do. But that was the extent of my coding. But here they teach different types of coding. They teach. If I can pull it up here, I just had it, but I don't see it anymore. Here we go. Different courses. Let's see, courses. Yeah, so they have, JavaScript, React, Python. They have full stack coding. Let's see here. They even have an option to code for free. But yeah, it's a summer camp. They call it an unlimited boot camp because uh, you have access at any time after your first boot camp for life. Meaning, if I signed on and did a course with them for the rest of my life, I can go back and access all the materials that they have there if I wanted to continue my research and teaching myself to code and to do that. That's amazing. That is absolutely incredible what Israel does in that way. And so, again, there are countless examples, and we talk about this every week. And again, we talk about this and we write about this on our Substack. Um, Israel does these things for the world, and Israel reaches out to Africa constantly. There's so much synergy and so much work that happens between Israel and Africa. You wouldn't think so if you just looked. First of all, you wouldn't think it exists because it doesn't really get talked about. But if it does get talked about, um, the agenda is kind of pushed by people who hate Israel, and they're trying to paint Israel as another colonizer, right? Trying to colonize Africa. When honestly, first of all, we're talking about the creation of Israel. It is such a decolonization project. It's not even funny. I mean, fighting off the British and rebuilding an ancient homeland. That's decolonization at its finest. But then, secondly, what Israel is doing in Africa, they're actually trying to help Africa build itself, while other countries are still mining Africa for her minerals, for all of her valuable resources that they plunder and sell back at 10, 20, 30 times the price. Israel is the only country that really wants to see Africa prosperous, and it's actually taking steps to seeing Africa prosperous. It's a big deal. It's a big deal. And so, once again, if you guys are listening here, thank you for tuning in and listening in. This is IBSI, Institute for Black Solidarity with Israel. My name is Joshua Washington, the executive director, here with you today. I want to give you one last thing. I want to talk about one last thing, an update on the IBSI ambassadors. IBSI ambassadors were doing very well. They, as you know, we had a 9-month journey for our plan for education, advocacy, and community engagement, or PEACE, as you can kind of see on my shirt there. Our ambassadors, they went through a lot of educational sessions, discussions where we were able to talk and really get into really some deep things, and then went to South Africa, and then went to Israel, and now are beginning their community engagement portion of the Peace Initiative, which really are their ideas, things that they see is a need for either their community or in their space specifically. And I'll give you an example of that. When I say in their space specifically, we have an ambassador who is in the education space, primarily the homeschool education space or other alternative education, which there is a growing number of in America, especially amongst Black families, but all families right now. A lot of families are pulling their kids out of public school and going the other route of finding alternative education. Me and my 5 sisters, we were all homeschooled at different times. I think out of all of us, I was homeschooled the most amount of years, all the way through to the 10th grade, or through the 10th grade, I should say. And yeah, I mean it's back when we did it, it wasn't a popular thing. We were, especially, I'm talking about amongst Black families, it was very much considered a white Republican thing. Now I look and I see a lot of families, a lot of Black families and otherwise, homeschooling their children. It's a great thing to see. And whenever I get to cross paths with some of these kids, whether it's during piano lessons, if they become my students, or at some of these other, sometimes I see them at different conventions or whatever, it just makes my heart glad. And I have a chat with them, and if I do get a chance to talk with them, I tell them, you're different and it's okay, but you're not so different because you have more people now in your corner, which is really great. But we have what we have is one of our ambassadors who one of their ideas is actually to write and create with IBSI's help curriculum, an Africa-Israel curriculum that deals with all the things that we talked about, but gear it toward high schoolers. That would be sold to homeschool families, to private schools, to charter schools, to anyone who would be willing to adopt the curriculum, learning about ancient Israel, ancient Africa, I mean, like Kush, I mean, and the Africa-Israel relationship, how far back it goes, and learning some basic things about, different African countries and the origins of them, and the Africa-Israel relationship and the Black-Jewish relationship. And she wants this, to have this as a part of, um, like I said, this curriculum to be adopted by homeschool families and schools all over the place. That's a really, because of the line of work that this ambassador is in, it makes sense, and it's something that she's passionate about, and IBSI is helping her get that going. That is the community engagement piece. Um, and so we're at that stage now. I've been meeting one on one with almost all of our ambassadors now. I still have a couple more to meet with, but and these ideas have been just as equally as amazing across the board. It really is such a beautiful thing to see, and I'm excited. This next phase is going to be absolutely amazing. Quick update as well about that. For some of you, I think we've been announcing when our gathering, we call it the gathering. It's our big gala event, which was going to happen fairly soon, but we've pushed it to now Juneteenth. So we'll be posting more about that soon. It's in Charlotte. It'll be here in Charlotte, North Carolina, Juneteenth. We'll have our gathering, which you'll be able to, if you're in Charlotte, if you're near Charlotte, if you're not near Charlotte but you want to come, tickets will be available soon. You can get tickets. You can come and meet our ambassadors. You can come and actually engage with them, talk with them. There'll be, we'll have speakers. There'll be live music. There's going to be a lot of really amazing things that people to engage with, and further work. It's almost like a check-in for all the work that they're doing, and all the work that they are, that they have been engaged in. I just got a message from Jeffrey Rosenberg. I wish I could read Hebrew, but I sadly cannot. So if you can hear me, Jeffrey, just if you could translate that for me, that would be fantastic. I see a Gimel there. I see a Sheen there. Let me know. Yes, and lots of food. Thank you, Elizabeth. Lots and lots of food, because if you are at any kind of event at all, but especially one Black event run by Black people, you're gonna have lots. We're gonna eat. Yeah, believe that. We're gonna make sure there's lots of food, lots of good music. It's gonna be a party and a half. So Juneteenth next year, in Charlotte, North Carolina, and tickets will be available soon. And if you can't come or aren't able to come, or you want to come but you still want to find out a way to support IBSI, there's a QR code right now on the corner of my screen. Listen, I said this. I said this like yesterday. Oh, hello. You're saying hello, Joshua. I see now. Yes. Hello, Jeffrey. Thank you. Thanks for tuning in. If you're on Clubhouse, you won't see this QR code, obviously. But you can go to ibsi.com/donate, or you can use your phone and scan that QR code on the corner and give to IBSI. Not just give to IBSI, not just give one time to IBSI. Become a legacy builder. I'm sorry, I said ibsi.com, and I apologize. It's ibsi.org, ibsi.org/donate. Become a legacy builder. Now, the difference between a legacy builder and just a giver is this: someone who gives might give $100, and that's great, and we love you for it, and we'll be very, very grateful. So I'm not downplaying any of that at all. But a legacy builder is a monthly giving campaign that helps the work of IBSI. It's monthly. You can give a small amount, and monthly, and it helps us do the work that we're doing. I just got a question here from YouTube from On. It says, "Hi, what are some of the Arabs or Palestinians that you have a close relationship with?" We have quite a few. So first of all, most recently, one of our IBSI ambassadors is actually half Palestinian. But other than that, we have partnerships actually with Arab Palestinians, both in Israel and in Judea, Samaria, even some who used to live in Gaza. We have a close friendship with Basim Aid, who I personally have done events with before. Khaled Abu Tuame, who is a journalist. He's a journalist with Gatestone Institute. He used to be, a long time ago, he used to be a journalist for Yasser Arafat. Now he lives in Israel, and he still writes. He most of his writings are actually about what's going on in Gaza, and what's going on the ground from the Palestinian people. It was actually through him that I learned about the protest a few years ago called "We Want to Live." We Want to Live protest. You can find it still. I think it's on Gatestone Institute where he wrote about it, but it's on other platforms as well. It was a protest that was enacted by Palestinians in Gaza, and they the protest was squashed over a period of time because Hamas um, killed a lot of people, ran them over with tanks, killed the journalists who were reporting on it, would enter the homes of those, no matter how young, they could be young kids. If they posted on Facebook a status criticizing Mahmoud Abbas, they were found in their homes, they were in prison, they were killed. And so these people were rising up and they were protesting, and they were being squashed. I only knew about this because of Khaled Abu Tuame. So he is an Arab Palestinian journalist who writes extensively on that stuff. He's another person that we have a good relationship with. There's a well, I don't want to say her name. I don't want to get her name wrong, so I may not. I'll have to pull that up later. But yes, we do have relationships with Arab Palestinians. Over the years, we partnered with many, and we continue to do so. This. When I talked earlier, if you weren't on there earlier, I talked about allyship and friendship, and how friendship is really the foundation of allyship. You can't allyship without friendship. It's just a transaction, And if that's all you want, then be upfront. Like I was saying before, I referenced that TV show. I need something from you. You need something from me. I'll use you. You'll use me, and that's how this relationship is going to go. Okay, fine. Don't then act like we're friends in public, or act like we're friends to me when we're actually not friends, right? And then toss me aside when I say something that you don't like, or toss me aside when you don't need me anymore. So we've made very good friendships with people, just being who we are, speaking the truth, and speaking as well and as best as we can, as loudly as we can. We developed some very, very good friends because of that. Some of which have been Arab Palestinians who like what we're saying. There's another person who I met. This wasn't even an IBSI trip. I was on Israel for a different trip. He's a young kid, and he fled Gaza. We met him in Judea Samaria. He was in, or what a lot of people call the West Bank. And he talked about how when he was a young kid, he used to hate Israel, and he was taught that, and he began to see things and ask questions, and and just do some research, and kind of secretly, because he couldn't say too much. And he got to a point where he felt this fire in him to really speak out. But he spoke out, and his life was in danger, and he had to flee. And so he was telling us this story from like I said, Judea, from the West Bank, because he had left Gaza. And so sometimes he is featured on our friends at Israel Collective. He's on their YouTube video, but his face is blurred. But I got to meet him face to face. Another question from An. I don't know if it's boy or girl, excuse me. So what do you think Israel, Africa, and African Americans can do to empower Palestinians that are trying to contain the conservative Sunni Islamist tendencies of Hamas? To be honest with you, let me read it one more time. What do you think Israel, Africa, and African Americans can do to empower Palestinians that are trying to contain the conservative Sunni Islamist tendencies of Hamas? That's a deep question. Yeah, at its very core, at its foundation, I am always a big proponent of speaking out, no matter how much it hurts, or how much it makes, how much it may be at a risk to you. And obviously, I'm saying this from America, where we have these freedoms, right? I can say whatever I can say, basically whatever I want to say, and not have to worry about someone banging down my door, at least for now, right? And so that being said, I think especially for the Arab Palestinians who are not living in Gaza, right? Who are living somewhere where they have the freedom and the safety to use that. You have a privilege. You have a privilege. You do. to say something that about what's happening over there, right? It's one thing if uh, if a Jewish person says it. It's even one thing, Black Americans. It is something entirely different when Black Americans. Your questions about Black Americans, um, Africa and African Americans. Yeah, I mean, doing what IBSI is doing now. The more of us speak up, I'm a firm believer that if we as Black Americans can really be on one accord about an issue and speak up, that the world will listen to us. I believe that with all my heart. And someone told me this. Charles Jacobs, it's older Jewish man. He's a he's an anti-slavery. He fights for the freedom of enslaved Africans all around the world. He's been doing this for decades. He's gotten awards. Got an award from Coretta Scott King. You go to www.iabolish.org. You'll see about his organization. Also, he's partners with Free Nigerian Slaves. I want to say .org or .com. I have it right here in my notes actually. It's freenigerianslaves.org or Christian Solidarity International, csi.usa.org. Those are his partners. This man, he started his whole entire work was started when he would go to places like Sudan incognito, pretend to be a slave trader, buy like 100, 200 Sudanese slaves, and then take them somewhere and free them all. He started doing this on his own initiative. And then he developed this organization where they basically do that. They advocate and they actually go in and save these slaves who are mainly enslaved by Arab slave traders, and they free them. And he told me he's been doing this work for decades. This man is in the latter part of his life now. He's still fighting strong and doing his thing. And he told me, he said, and you can listen to this on. I have a podcast with him. You go ibsi.substack.com. Go to our podcast. You'll see my interview with Charles Jacobs. He said, I believe that Black Americans, you Black people, have a holy power because of what they've been through. He wasn't talking about because of the color of our skin innately, right? The whole black girl magic, black boy magic. No. He wasn't talking about because of the color of skin. He was saying because of the legacy of what you all went through, as Booker T. Washington called it, the school of slavery. And he talks about it. Booker T. Washington talks about it himself. What Charles Jacobs said lined up with what Booker T. Washington said in his biography, My Bondage, My Freedom, which was Black Americans who have been through the school of slavery, they do have this sort of privilege. They have this sort of these are his words, like this sort of moral and spiritual endurance and not superiority. The word I'm looking for is like strength, stamina, right? They have this level of strength and endurance that is unlike other Black people in the diaspora. So much so, and I didn't even know this part, but so much so, he said that many Black Americans, when they were freed from slavery in America, traveled back to Africa as missionaries to teach, not just to teach God's word, but to teach God's word through the lens of what they've been through their newfound understanding of the scriptures because of what they've been through, to teach their fellow African brothers. This is right after slavery. Black Americans were going back to Africa and sharing what they've been through with their brothers that they were estranged from for all these years. That's amazing. So to answer your question in a very, very long way, sorry, I will answer this, is that we have to be on one accord about this. The reason why IBSI does this is it's for us. It's for our communities as well. There's so much that has happened because of the Black and Jewish synergy, the Black and Jewish relationship that has benefited Black Americans. There's so much, and there's so much that can be done if we can stop with all the complaining about. Look, I don't mean to kind of get on these other. I'm not going to name any organizations by name, but when groups of people come together, Black and Jewish people, these organizations sometimes that bring them together and they want to talk about our shared trauma. I don't want to talk about my trauma anymore. First of all, I don't have trauma from slavery. I was not a slave. Okay. But secondly, even if I did, I don't want to just come together with someone who has a similar trauma than me and talk about trauma all day long. Where are we going with that? Where's that taking us? Is that it? So then after we're done, we just close the curtains, lock the doors, and go home and come back the next day and talk about some more trauma. Oh, trauma, trauma, trauma. Okay, there's trauma. What have we learned from our trauma? Maybe there's some collective resilience that we have together as a people that we can actually, in a real way, change the world in a real way because of what we've been through that has strengthened us. I was in a clubhouse room uh by it's a good friend of mine that I met on Clubhouse, Simon Okelo. He's a Kenyan. He has a he lives in the Northwest, but he's from originally from Kenya, and he had this room where Holocaust survivors of the Shoah, survivors of the Holocaust, and survivors of the Rwandan genocide were in the same clubhouse room together, not sharing about their traumas. They were actually sharing about they were talking about the traumas in the context of moving forward, building together, preventing that kind of evil from resurfacing again, right? How their understanding of how evil even worked. Like it was such a powerful room. I was just like, I can't believe I'm witnessing this right now. This is before you can record. I wish I would have screenshot. I wish I had the presence of mind to screen record it. It was so powerful. That is more powerful than let's get together, talk about Hitler, let's talk about the Ku Klux Klan, talk about Jim Crow, segregation, and then okay, cool. Now let's go home. There's nothing that can be that Dr. Bob Woodson of the Woodson Center. He said this to me. We were talking about the synergy between blacks and Jews, and he said, I actually wrote this down because I was like, wow. As soon as he said it, I had to write it down on my phone because um, man, whenever I get to talk to this man, it just blows my mind. He says, I think the best way to bring two peoples together is to give them a task, a particular task that helps a third party in need. That is much better than lighting candles and singing Kumbaya. He literally, off the top of the dome, he said this to me. I went, wow. And he was saying this in the context of an idea he really wants to see someone do, which is when young men, particularly who are in group homes, who they turn 18, they age out of the group home. My gramps, my mother's father, ran group home for years and years and years. My dad worked in it for a number of years when I was a kid. I remember I used to go and visit sometimes and meet some of the guys. He said when they turn 18, they age out and they can't, often they don't really know what to do after that. And they go back to a life of crime because there's no kind of further training after that. They're 18 years old. And so they're technically adults, but they still need guidance, and they try to hang around the group home sometimes, but they can't legally. And so they just kind of are left to their own devices, and usually things go wrong. So he said there should be a program for people who age out of group homes to help transition them into adult life, into the mainstream of society. I was like, wow. And he said, I really want to see someone do that. He's like, I'm doing so, and he does. He's like, I'm doing so many other things. I can't start a new thing, but I'll gladly fund something that does that. I'll gladly put money into that. And then he said, I mean, I could see, first of all, he was like, I could see black people and Jewish people coming together and doing that. And then that's when he said that. He said, I think the best way to bring two peoples together is to give them a task, a particular task that helps a third party in need. That is much better than lighting candles and sing Kumbaya. So he was saying there are injustices now that are affecting people now, not just black people, not just Jewish people, not just Asian people, not just white people, but people. And if we can take this lens off of everything being about my pain and my suffering and my trauma and the color of my skin, and if we could focus on someone who's truly oppressed in a way where they cannot move, literally, like they cannot move beyond where they are. Feet are on their necks not sitting in a nice air conditioned home complaining about something, but like people who do not have parents, right? Who aren't able to go back to their group home but have nowhere else to go, who all they have is a life of crime, to kids who are being trafficked by the millions every day. Human trafficking industry is a multi-billion, is the largest, most lucrative industry in the world. He was like, if we could come together and see someone who's in greater need than us and actually help them and move toward that, that would be such a powerful move. Instead of talking about things that have happened so long ago and complaining about it for so long. I mean, that's so again, to answer your question on I think that the best way is for us to speak out, but to speak out as one voice and stop getting caught up in all this other stuff that doesn't matter. That just doesn't matter. I mean, what I just told you about slavery, I've been posting and all that stuff. I've gotten pushback to say that, oh, sure, but it still wasn't as bad as our slavery. I'm not even gonna have the argument with you that their slavery might be worse, because why are we talking about that? Our slavery is over. They're enslaved right now. So are we going to do something about them right now, or are we going to keep talking about what our great grandparents went through? I mean, come on now. Are we really having this oppression Olympics with people who are enslaved now to talk about how, well, my great grandparents had it worse? Okay, but you didn't have it worse because you're not a slave. He's a slave. I mean, goodness gracious. I usually don't yell like this, but it really is something. One of the punishments, one of the things, and I think it's in Sudan, where one of the things that slave masters do to slaves to punish them, to kill them. I'm not trying to gross anyone out, but it's a reality. They take these bugs that burrow and they stick it in the slave's ear, and then they tie these things on, like they lock whatever this, like I'm wearing headphones right now. It's like headphones, but something that the slave can't take off. They lock something onto their ears so that the bug literally burrows into their ear, into their brain. And the slave either dies or goes crazy from all the noise and the bug chewing through their ear and getting to their brain. That's one of the punishments for a slave today, right now. Why are we talking about what slavery is worse and who had it worse and the legacy of slavery and how it? Why do we argue about things that we really can't quantify? I'm going to be honest with you. We really can't quantify how slavery has truly affected us today. We can do it generally. I can even talk about, see, and this is why the whole debate about the curriculum in Florida is so stupid. No, the curriculum is not. First of all, curriculum is written by Black people, Black elder statesmen in the community, who in the education space, who wrote this curriculum. They're not saying that slavery was good. They're saying what Booker T. Washington said. He said right after emancipation, slaves got jobs and they had a very high skill set in certain areas because of what they did when they were enslaved. Some slaves, because they were too old, I mean, they, in their mind, they're in their 70s and their 80s, they didn't really have the energy or the desire to go and try and get a job somewhere else. They went back to their masters and they negotiated a deal with them, and they became contracted employees with their former masters, now their bosses. So they got paid to basically do what they were doing for free with their bosses because they weren't doing anything else. But what he was saying was, himself too, Booker T. Washington, he was a cleaning person for this white lady who was she was so strict that she would turn, she had so many cleaning people before him to clean her house, but they did not do a well enough job. And she was so particular about how she wanted things to be cleaned that she kept firing and people kept quitting because she was too harsh. He said that he distinguished himself. He was her cleaner all the way up until he went to college. She loved him. She was the best because of his attention to detail, because of what he had to do when he was a slave. He wasn't saying slavery was good. He's saying, I learned some things during slavery that helped me when I was free. And the curriculum was teaching that. The people who are getting caught up in this whole lie that the curriculum is praising slavery, they are being foolish. And this is not just people on the left side. They're conservative. There are Black conservatives who have drunk the Kool-Aid on this. And it's really disappointing and frustrating because that's not what the curriculum is saying at all. Frederick Douglass said the same thing. These were former slaves that said, when I became free, the lessons, the things that I learned that I had to do under slavery, I was able to take that and get a really well-paying job to secure my family, because I had these skills. They didn't say, boy, thank God we were slaves. Thank God for slavery. I wish we could have some more slaves. Give me more of that slavery. Yum, yum, yum. No, that's not what they said. They said, here's a terrible situation. Here's how we came out of it. And here's what we can do with it now. Period. Period. I've been through some stuff that was bad that I benefit from now. Am I saying that bad thing was actually a good thing? No, it was still bad, but I learned something from it. We go through things in our own lives that we say, okay, that was terrible. That really did suck. But hey, you know what? our Jewish brothers and sisters talking about the klippah and the kedusha, right? The klippah, the outer is terrible, but on the inside, this did help me get stronger in this way. That's all we're saying. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. That's what that phrase is, for crying out loud. So let me get off my soapbox here, but there are things happening in this world that need our attention more than us talking about what happened to our ancestors. I'm just, and not just talking about, it's good to know about it, but complaining about it. There are things today that need our attention. Yeah. There are things today that need our attention. Sheesh. And so again, long answer to your question on what can we do? We have to speak out, but we have to speak out together. That would empower anyone to see someone who comes from a people who are beat down, who shouldn't be here, to be honest with you. They shouldn't be here today, who are here and not just surviving, but thriving, to stand up and say, this is what the Palestinian people are going through in Gaza. This is how their leaders are oppressing them. You guys, we need to call out. We need to collectively say, I mean, that's huge. We are more powerful than we think. We really are. Okay, I've been on that long enough. Sorry, but I hope that answered your question. We're over time. It's 9:10. Like I said before, I apologize. Our CEO couldn't be here today. And my beautiful wife and our speakers bureau leader also couldn't be here today. But she is picking up my brother-in-law, her brother from the airport, and my nephew. They're coming and visiting us from South Africa. Super happy about that. Their flight was about 8.5 hours delayed, which is why she's gone now and not earlier today. So you're just stuck with me, but I hope you all have enjoyed this. Again, please, for people who are watching, donate, become a legacy builder to IBSI today. This work that we're doing is far too important to be ignored. Scan the QR code, go to ibsi.org/donate. Don't just give once. Don't just give twice. Look at your budget, look at your bank account, look at your expenses. You know what? I'm going to go be so bold to say, look at something that you don't have to have. Thank you, Matril. Thank you so much, ma'am, for being here. Thank you, ma'am. Look at something that, I don't have to have coffee every single day, right? I don't have to go out to eat twice a week. I don't have to, and put that toward giving to IBSI. Just $20. I challenge you to give just $20 a month. $20 a month. And help IBSI grow. And as we do this work, this very, very important work, especially as we're in this community engagement piece, and as we prepare for our first gathering this Juneteenth. I see one more thing from Anan, and I want to address this. She says, or they say, some ADOS friends say that that's African descendants of slavery. Some African descendants of slavery friends say that ADOS have their own challenges and should work on that, self-improvement, self-empowerment, versus Africa, Israel, Palestine. How do you respond? People have to do what they're called to do. So when it comes to individuals and what they feel needs to be done, yes, I 100% agree that us Black Americans here in this country have a lot of issues that we need. There's a lot of introspection that we have to do. There's a lot of conversations that we're not willing to have, that we need to have. Conversations that we shoot people down for having. There are a lot of problems that have solutions, but the people who say the solutions, we don't like them, or we don't like what they have to say, so we shoot them down. A lot of our problems can really be fixed tomorrow if we could really be real about what the problems are and how they can be fixed. That's another story for another day. So all that, I do agree with that. But I have heard that argument before. To say that as a blanket statement is just really to not be focused, right? If you feel that your responsibility is to deal with this particular issue in the Black community because we're weak in this area and this is really going to help us, you do your part, right? I'm a Christian. There's scriptures that talk about the body of Christ, and that there's a head, there are the hands, there, the feet can't be upset because they're not hands, and all that. We all have our part to play. Some people are the hands. Some people are the eyes. They have the vision. They see. Some people are the feet. They don't necessarily have the vision, but they know they're workers. Tell me what to do, and I got you. I'm supporting you. I got you 100%. Some people are the heart. They're the passion. They're the ones that drive things, that keep everyone going. So yes, but all these things, to me, they're connected. If we all actually do our part, then our self-improvement, our betterment in our community also will actually naturally coincide with what's going on in Africa, will naturally coincide with what's going on in Israel. It just will naturally coincide with, let's really speak out about what's actually happening to the Arab Palestinians in Gaza, right? Let's actually speak out about what's happening to Palestinian refugees who still don't have a home in these other Arab countries who won't take them in, who are actually oppressing them, right? That will naturally flow out of that. So it's not one or the other. But once we step into our callings individually and what we're supposed to be doing, will overlap. Our ambassadors are in other, I gave you one example, but all of our ambassadors do a lot of different, they're in different spheres, but somehow we all came together on this issue, on Africa, Israel, and they're working that, not even working it into what they do. It's just becoming a part of their lives now. It's connecting. I'm a musician. I travel and I sing and I compose and I perform and all that stuff. And my music life overlaps with this. I don't even have to try and I don't force that. It just happens. My first international show was in Jerusalem. My next one will be in Paris. And then, God willing, my next one will most likely be in South Africa. Like, and with that and those relationships and the things that form from there, when we walk in the things that when we walk in the calling that we're supposed to walk in, when we do the things we're supposed to do, when we move forward, those things connect. So it's not an either or. It's not an either or. I hope I answered your question. Okay, again, we're way over time. If you're still watching this, again, donate to IBSI, ibsi.org/donate. Or another way you can support us is to become a monthly, a paid subscriber to our Substack. If you're a free subscriber, that's great. Convert to being a paid subscriber. You can get premium content. We're bringing back the podcast, so you'll have new episodes. But the podcast will be premium content, so you can get the articles and stuff, but you won't be able to listen to the podcast unless you become a paid subscriber. So either donate to IBSI or go to ibsi.substack.com and become a paid subscriber, and you'll get lots of material. It's going to be awesome. There's lots of stuff there already. Okay, thank you all so very much. I thank you guys, and I see your last question. I think I already answered it from before. But please feel free to send me a message on YouTube, since you're on YouTube, or message me on Instagram at JoshWashIBSI. I'd love to continue talking with you about this. Thank you all so very much. Have a good rest of your week, and we'll see you back next week. Bye.